You think attraction is about saying the right thing. It isn't. You think getting someone to come back into your life is about finding a perfect text message, the perfect timing, or a secret phrase that flips a switch in someone's mind. That's not how human behavior works. People don't repeatedly return to a person because of clever words. They return because of how they feel around that person. Every relationship is an emotional environment. Some environments create stress. Some create boredom. Some create comfort. A few create emotional gravity. And gravity is the real secret. People go back to places where they feel something meaningful. Think about your favorite restaurant. You don't keep going back because of one meal. You go back because of the experience attached to it, the feeling, the familiarity, the emotional memory. Relationships work exactly the same way. A person doesn't return again and again because you chase them. They return because your presence became associated with a powerful emotional state. The human brain is always asking one question. How do I feel when I'm around this person? Not how attractive they are. Not how successful they are. Not how many followers they have. How do I feel? Do I feel safe? Do I feel understood? Do I feel important? Do I feel alive? People move toward emotions. They move away from emotions. Almost every decision you have ever made can be traced back to that simple principle. Now here's where most people get it wrong. When someone pulls away, they panic. And panic changes behavior. They text more, call more, explain more. They begin trying to convince someone to stay. But neediness has a strange effect. It accidentally communicates that your emotional state depends entirely on another person. And dependency creates pressure. Pressure rarely creates attraction. It usually creates distance. Human beings are drawn toward people who seem emotionally complete. Not perfect. Not emotionless. Complete. Someone who can enjoy connection without demanding it. Someone who values relationships without clinging to them. Someone who can love deeply and still stand firmly on their own feet. That kind of person creates curiosity, because emotional stability is rare, and rare things attract attention. Imagine meeting two people. The first person needs your approval, needs your attention, needs constant reassurance. The second person enjoys your company but seems perfectly okay either way. Which person feels more valuable? The answer is obvious. People trust emotional strength. They are drawn to it, not because it's cold, because it feels safe. Now let's talk about something most people never notice. The strongest form of attraction isn't excitement. It's emotional contrast. If every interaction is intense, eventually intensity becomes normal. If every interaction is predictable, eventually predictability becomes invisible. The brain notices change, variation, contrast. This is why some conversations stay with you. They made you laugh, then think, then feel understood. Different emotions layered together create memorable experiences, and memorable experiences create attachment. People don't come back because you were constantly available. They come back because interactions with you felt different, interesting, unexpected, meaningful. The brain is constantly searching for significance. Most interactions are forgettable. Wake up, work, small talk, repeat. Then someone enters your life who makes you feel something uncommon. They listen differently. They see things differently. They challenge you. They understand you. Suddenly your brain marks that person as important. Not because of logic, because of emotional significance. Now here's a strange truth. People often become more interested in something once they realize they can lose it. Think about that. A book sitting on your shelf can remain untouched for years. The moment you lose it, you suddenly remember how valuable it was. Human beings are terrible at appreciating certainty. We often value things after they become uncertain. This doesn't mean you play games. This doesn't mean you manipulate people. It means you understand a fundamental principle. Your life cannot revolve entirely around one person. You need your own mission, your own direction, your own sense of identity, because people are attracted to those who appear to be moving somewhere. Purpose is magnetic. A person with direction communicates something powerful. I have a life that exists beyond your approval. That message changes everything, because now your attention becomes valuable, not guaranteed. Not automatic. Valuable. Value is closely tied to availability. Things that are endlessly available often become invisible. Things that have meaning and boundaries become important. This is why self-respect matters. Self-respect changes behavior. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing. You stop trying to earn affection. You start showing up as yourself. And authenticity is incredibly powerful. People can sense when someone is performing. They can sense when someone is desperate to be liked. And they can sense when someone is comfortable being who they are. Comfort creates trust. Trust creates connection. Connection creates emotional memory. Emotional memory creates return. Think about the people you've never forgotten. Was it because they texted you every hour? Probably not. It was because they made you feel something unique. The brain stores emotional experiences differently than ordinary events. A random Tuesday disappears. A meaningful conversation stays. A moment of genuine understanding stays. A feeling of being seen stays. The people who create those moments become difficult to replace. Now let's talk about attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Everyone wants it. Everyone competes for it. But very few people know how to give it properly. Most people listen so they can respond. Very few listen so they can understand. There is enormous psychological power in making someone feel heard. Not agreed with. Heard. When someone feels understood, their nervous system relaxes. Defenses lower. Trust increases. And trust creates emotional investment. People return to places where they feel emotionally safe. Think about it. Why do people revisit certain friendships after years apart? Why do they reconnect with certain partners? Because some connections create an emotional home. And emotional homes are hard to replace. Another mistake people make is trying to become unforgettable by being impressive. Impressive fades. Presence remains. A person may forget exactly what you said. They rarely forget how they felt around you. Did they feel judged or accepted? Did they feel ignored or important? Did they feel drained or energized? Those emotional impressions become your psychological signature, and signatures are powerful. Because whenever someone thinks about you, they also remember how you made them feel. This is why trying too hard often backfires. Trying too hard creates tension. Tension creates discomfort. Discomfort creates distance. Confidence is quieter. Confidence doesn't force. It invites. It doesn't chase. It attracts. And attraction often works through emotional permission. People return when they feel free to choose. Pressure creates resistance. Freedom creates curiosity. The harder you try to hold water in your hands, the faster it slips away. Relationships can work the same way. The more tightly someone feels controlled, the more they want distance. The more freedom they feel, the more likely they are to move closer. This is not manipulation. It's understanding human nature. People want connection, but they also want autonomy. The healthiest relationships honor both. Now consider something interesting. When someone leaves your presence feeling better than when they arrived, you become memorable. Maybe they laughed. Maybe they felt understood. Maybe they gained perspective. Maybe they felt calmer. You became associated with positive emotional change. The brain notices that. It starts categorizing you differently. This person improves my experience. That category has enormous power, because people repeatedly return to experiences that make life feel better. Not easier, better. The person who creates emotional uplift becomes valuable, and value creates loyalty. Then there is mystery. Not mystery created through games. Real mystery. The kind that comes from having a rich inner life. Interests, goals, experiences, passions. A person who has depth naturally creates curiosity. You don't know everything about them immediately. There is always another layer. Human beings are explorers. We are fascinated by complexity. Predictability can create comfort, but discovery creates excitement. A person with depth gives others something to discover, and discovery keeps attention alive. The goal is never to make someone obsessed. The goal is to become someone whose presence feels meaningful, because meaningful experiences are revisited, again and again. A favorite place, a favorite song, a favorite conversation, a favorite person. All of them share one thing: emotional significance. If you want someone to keep returning, become associated with experiences that feel genuine, positive, and memorable. Become someone who listens, someone who grows, someone who has purpose, someone who respects themselves, someone who doesn't demand attention but naturally earns it. Because people are drawn toward emotional gravity, and emotional gravity isn't created by tricks. It's created by character. It's created by emotional intelligence. It's created by understanding that attraction is less about making someone need you and more about making interactions with you feel valuable. The paradox is simple. The less you try to control people, the more comfortable they feel around you. The more comfortable they feel around you, the more emotionally open they become. The more emotionally open they become, the more meaningful the connection becomes. And meaningful connections have a strange habit. People leave them, then think about them, then miss them, then return to them. Again and again and again. Again and again, the same pattern appears. People don't come back because they were convinced. They come back because something about the connection stayed alive in their mind. There is a huge difference. Convincing someone creates temporary compliance. Emotional significance creates voluntary return. One is pressure, the other is gravity. Gravity doesn't chase, it pulls. And if you study human behavior long enough, you start noticing something fascinating. The people everyone seems to gravitate toward are rarely the loudest people in the room. They are rarely the ones trying the hardest. They're usually the people who make others feel interesting, valued, seen. Think about the last conversation you genuinely enjoyed. You probably remember how you felt more than the exact words. Maybe you felt relaxed. Maybe you felt energized. Maybe you felt like you could be yourself. Those emotional states become attached to the person. The brain creates associations constantly. Coffee and mornings. Music and memories. People and feelings. If every interaction with someone creates tension, eventually the mind starts avoiding that person. If every interaction creates warmth, understanding, or excitement, the mind starts seeking that person. It's almost automatic. We move toward emotional rewards. Now here's something counterintuitive. One of the most attractive qualities a person can have is emotional predictability, combined with personal unpredictability. That sounds complicated, but it isn't. Emotional predictability means people know they'll feel respected around you. They know they won't be manipulated. They know they won't be punished for expressing themselves. That creates safety. Personal unpredictability means you still have your own life, your own interests, your own growth, your own direction. You aren't repetitive. You aren't stagnant. You're evolving. That creates curiosity. Safety and curiosity together are incredibly powerful. Too much unpredictability creates anxiety. Too much predictability creates boredom. The sweet spot is being emotionally safe while remaining personally interesting. That's the combination that keeps people engaged. Now let's talk about scarcity. Not artificial scarcity. Real scarcity. Your attention should have value because your life has value. A person with purpose cannot spend every waking hour waiting for someone else's text. A person with goals cannot make another human being the center of their universe. When someone has a full and meaningful life, their time naturally becomes valuable. And valuable things are appreciated differently. People can sense when someone has options. Not romantic options. Life options. Opportunities. Interests. Direction. That energy changes interactions because it communicates abundance instead of need. Need says, please stay because I have nothing without you. Abundance says, I enjoy your presence, but I am still whole on my own. Wholeness is attractive. Very attractive. Because everyone wants connection without carrying the weight of someone else's part. Emotional survival. Then there is emotional memory. This may be one of the most important concepts of all. The brain does not remember every interaction equally. It remembers emotional peaks, moments of surprise, moments of laughter, moments of vulnerability, moments of genuine connection. 100 ordinary conversations can disappear. One meaningful moment can remain for years. That's why quality matters more than quantity. You don't need constant communication. You need memorable communication. You don't need endless attention. You need meaningful attention. The person who can create meaningful moments becomes difficult to forget. Now imagine two people. One sends messages all day, every day. The other has fewer interactions, but each interaction leaves you smiling, thinking, or feeling understood. Which person occupies more emotional space? Usually the second. Because emotion determines importance, not frequency. The people who stay in our minds are often the people who made us feel something significant. Another fascinating truth about human behavior is that people return to what feels unfinished. The brain dislikes incomplete emotional experiences. An unanswered question stays alive. An unresolved feeling lingers. A meaningful conversation that ended too soon keeps replaying. This is why anticipation can be so powerful. When interactions always end at the highest point, the mind wants more. Not because of manipulation, because of psychology. The brain enjoys completion. When completion doesn't happen, curiosity continues working. That's why certain books are impossible to put down. That's why cliffhangers exist. That's why some people stay on your mind. The experience doesn't feel complete. Now, this doesn't mean creating confusion or mixed signals. It means understanding that every interaction doesn't need to explain everything. Sometimes leaving space is healthy. Space allows emotion to breathe. Space allows anticipation to grow. Space allows people to appreciate. Most people are terrified of space. They think silence means loss. They think distance means rejection. But healthy distance often creates perspective. People realize what they value when they have room to feel it. Imagine listening to your favorite song on repeat 24 hours a day. Eventually, even your favorite song becomes background noise. Now imagine hearing it after months. The emotional impact changes. The same principle exists in relationships. Constant availability can reduce appreciation. Healthy independence increases it. This is why the most magnetic people often have rich, fulfilling lives outside of relationships. They don't disappear. They don't play games. They simply have a world of their own. And that world makes them interesting. Because nobody wants to feel like another person's only source of happiness. It's too much responsibility. Connection thrives when two complete lives come together, not when one person tries to become another person's entire existence. Then there's confidence. Real confidence. Not arrogance. Not pretending not to care. Real confidence is calm. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't force outcomes. It simply trusts. Trusts that connection cannot be manufactured. Trusts that the right people will appreciate the right qualities. Trusts that self-worth doesn't rise and fall based on one person's opinion. That kind of confidence changes everything, because it creates emotional freedom. People feel relaxed around someone who isn't trying to control them. Relaxation creates openness. Openness creates connection. Connection creates attachment. Attachment creates return. Now here's another psychological principle. People love being around someone who makes life feel bigger. Bigger in possibilities. Bigger in perspective. Bigger in experience. The people we keep returning to are often the people who expand our world. They inspire us, challenge us, encourage us, make us think differently. We associate them with growth, and growth feels alive. Nobody wants to repeatedly return to an interaction that feels small, heavy, or draining. People return to energy. They return to inspiration. They return to possibility. So ask yourself a question. When people leave your presence, do they feel lighter or heavier? More hopeful or more exhausted? More understood or more judged? Because your emotional impact determines your psychological value. The truth is simple. You cannot make someone come back. Human beings are not machines. There is no magic sentence, no hidden trick, no secret formula. But you can become the kind of person whose presence creates meaning. And meaningful experiences are hard to walk away from permanently. A person may leave, life may become busy, distance may happen, but emotional significance has a strange persistence. It stays, it lingers, it waits. Then one day, a memory appears, a song, a place, a phrase, and suddenly they're thinking about you. Not because you chased them, not because you demanded attention, because you mattered, because the connection mattered, because something about being around you felt different. That's the real psychology hack. Become unforgettable by creating experiences that feel real. Become memorable by making people feel seen. Become valuable by valuing yourself. Become magnetic by building a life that has direction and purpose. Because people don't repeatedly come back to perfection. They come back to significance. They come back to warmth. They come back to safety. They come back to curiosity. They come back to people who made them feel more like themselves. And when someone associates you with those emotions, something interesting happens. Even after time passes, even after distance, even after silence, a part of their mind still remembers what it felt like to be around you. And human beings have a remarkable tendency. They revisit places, experiences, and people that made them feel deeply alive. That's why some connections keep reopening. That's why certain names never completely disappear. That's why some people return, leave, and return again. Not because of tricks, not because of manipulation, but because emotional gravity keeps pulling them back toward what once felt meaningful. And the funny thing about emotional gravity is that most people don't notice it while it's case, and they only notice it when it's gone. When the messages stop, when the calls become less frequent, when the familiar presence disappears. That's when the brain begins doing something extraordinary. It starts comparing, not facts, feelings. How did life feel then? How does life feel now? This comparison happens automatically. The human mind is a pattern-detecting machine. It constantly evaluates experiences and ranks them according to emotional significance. That's why someone can meet hundreds of people and only remember a handful. Only a few create emotional markers. Only a few leave fingerprints on the mind. If you want to understand why people come back, understand this. The brain is always searching for emotional familiarity. Not necessarily comfort. Familiarity. That's why certain smells remind you of childhood. Certain songs remind you of a specific year. Certain places remind you of a specific person. The brain creates emotional maps, and once someone occupies a meaningful place on that map, they are difficult to erase. Now here's something almost nobody talks about. People don't return because you were perfect. Perfect is intimidating. Perfect is impossible. People return because they felt accepted. Accepted is different. Acceptance creates psychological safety, and psychological safety is one of the rarest experiences in modern life. Think about it. Most people spend their lives performing. At work, at social events, even in relationships. They hide parts of themselves, filter their thoughts, edit their emotions. Then they meet someone around whom they can simply exist. No performance, no mask, no constant effort. That experience is incredibly powerful, because the nervous system remembers relief. It remembers what it felt like to put down the armor, and people return to places where they can breathe. This is why emotional acceptance is more powerful than trying to impress someone. Impressing someone creates admiration. Acceptance creates attachment. Admiration is nice. Attachment changes behavior. Now let's go deeper. There is another reason people keep returning. Emotional consistency. People trust consistency. They trust someone who means what they say. Someone whose actions match their words. Someone who doesn't change personalities depending on circumstances. Consistency creates predictability. Predictability creates safety. Safety creates trust. And trust creates emotional investment. Without trust, attraction struggles to survive. With trust, even distance sometimes cannot destroy connection. Because trust creates permanence inside the mind. Then there's something even more interesting. People are deeply affected by unfinished emotional experiences. A conversation that ended too quickly. A relationship that ended unexpectedly. A connection that never fully became what it could have been. The brain hates unresolved stories. It wants endings. It wants explanations. It wants clarity. When it doesn't get those things, it keeps revisiting the experience. Over and over. Trying to make sense of it. This is why certain people stay on our minds for years. Not because we consciously choose to think about them, because our minds are still trying to complete the story. Now imagine someone who made you laugh when you needed it most. Someone who believed in you when you doubted yourself. Someone who saw potential in you that you couldn't see. Do you think that person simply disappears from memory? Of course not. People remember emotional rescue. They remember emotional support. They remember the people who appeared during important chapters of life. Timing matters. A lot. Sometimes a person becomes unforgettable because of when they arrived. Not because they were extraordinary by objective standards. Because they entered your life during a season when you needed exactly what they represented. Hope, understanding, encouragement, adventure, healing. The emotional context becomes attached to the person. Years later, the memory remains. Now here's where most people make a mistake. They think attraction is about becoming more desirable. In reality, a huge part of attraction is becoming more emotionally valuable. Those are not the same thing. Desirability often focuses on appearance, status, and presentation. Emotional value focuses on experience. How does life feel with you in it? Do people feel stronger, more peaceful, more inspired, more accepted? The answer to those questions determines whether someone remembers you. Because emotional experiences are sticky. Facts fade, feelings remain. Then there is curiosity. Curiosity is one of the strongest forces in human behavior. People become fascinated by things they don't completely understand. Not confusion. Depth. There's a difference. A person with depth doesn't reveal everything immediately. They have interests, perspectives, dreams, complexity. There is always something new to discover. Human beings are naturally drawn to discovery. We love exploring new places, new ideas, and new people. A person with depth keeps curiosity alive. And curiosity keeps attention alive. Attention creates investment. Investment creates attachment. Attachment creates return. Then there is emotional energy. Every person carries emotional energy into a room. Some people drain it. Some people elevate it. You know the difference immediately. There are people who leave you exhausted, and there are people who leave you feeling more alive. The second group is unforgettable, because everyone is carrying invisible weight, stress, worries, responsibilities, fear. When someone consistently makes life feel lighter, they become psychologically significant. Not because they solve your problems, because they temporarily remove the emotional burden. You feel different around them. The brain notices, it remembers, and eventually it seeks that experience again. Now let's talk about one of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships: presence. Most people think presence means being physically available. It doesn't. Presence means giving your attention completely when you're there. A 5-minute conversation with full presence can create more connection than 5 hours of distracted interaction. People remember how you made them feel in moments, not in calendars. A single genuine conversation can become a memory that lasts for years, because attention is emotional currency. Giving someone your full attention communicates something powerful. You matter right now. That message satisfies a deep human need. The need to feel important. The need to feel seen. The need to matter. And people return to experiences that meet deep emotional needs. Then there is confidence again. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need constant reassurance. The kind that doesn't panic when there is silence. The kind that doesn't chase. The kind that trusts. Confidence creates emotional space. And emotional space allows attraction to breathe. Panic suffocates. Control suffocates. Neediness suffocates. Confidence allows. And what is allowed often grows naturally. This is why trying too hard usually has the opposite effect. Effort is good. Desperation is not. Care is good. Attachment to outcomes is not. The people who seem most magnetic are often the people least obsessed with controlling what happens next. They are present, engaged, interested, but they remain centered in themselves. That balance is powerful, because it communicates emotional abundance, and abundance feels safe. Nobody wants to feel responsible for another person's entire emotional world. It's too much pressure. Healthy connection happens when two complete people choose each other, not when one person tries to become the oxygen for another. Then there is memory. Memory is selective. It doesn't preserve everything. It preserves significance. A random conversation disappears. A meaningful one remains. A forgettable evening fades. A powerful emotional experience stays. This is why some people leave an impact that lasts decades, because they were present during emotionally significant moments. And significance creates permanence. Now imagine someone thinking about you months later. What returns first? Probably not your exact words. Probably not your clothing. Probably not details. What returns is a feeling. Warmth. Comfort. Excitement. Peace. Laughter. That's how emotional memory works. The feeling arrives first. The details follow. This is why your emotional impact matters more than your performance. Because people may forget what you did, but they rarely forget what they consistently felt around you. The truth is simple. If you want someone to keep returning, become associated with experiences that improve life. Not through manipulation. Not through games. Through genuine presence. Through emotional intelligence. Through self-respect. Through purpose. Through curiosity. Through making people feel understood. Because people revisit emotional experiences that feel meaningful. They return to conversations that made them think. They return to people who made them feel accepted. They return to environments where they felt alive. And if your presence consistently creates those experiences, something remarkable happens. You stop trying to pull people toward you. You become someone they naturally move toward. Because gravity doesn't demand. It doesn't persuade. It doesn't chase. It simply exists. And everything that feels its pull begins moving in its direction,